two players, or these two teams, I should say, the men who invented Brood War, in a sense.
And the men who invented StarCraft 2.
Exactly. And now here they are in a totally new area. All the builds are different. Don't forget, in Legacy of the Void, you start out with more workers. So it might look like we're a little bit deeper in the game, you know, obviously, than what you might be used to. But starting out with more workers means all the builds are completely different.
That's right. A lot of things are, in fact, different in this game. And one of them being, see that time there? It says 1 minute 30. Oh, that's actually 1 minute and 30 seconds.
That's right.
One of my favorite
time
changes.
fixed. Very exciting stuff. We have a little bit of info, and we just discovered this right before the game started because we can see the in-game chat.
Yes.
And so they were talking about, they were talking to each other. Apparently, at least for the start, it looks like Boxer is going to be focusing more on the micro and attacking the other player, and then MVP is going to focus more on the build for the start, and on the other side it'll be Yellow focusing more on the micro, and then ST on the macro. Now I don't know how long that'll actually go for. I'm not sure they know how long that'll go on for, because it'll eventually be a lot of jumping around. I think what David Kim said back there was really interesting about if you just keep harassing them. I mean, it's so hard to keep up. One thing about one-on-one StarCraft is that it's almost impossible to keep up entirely, so it gets so tough. And when there's two, you can have a lot more action like that.
Indeed, and now we do see a Reaper coming out here. Surely Boxer microing right now against Yellow Zings, and look at that, throws down these KD8 mines, and these do some area damage, I guess you call it.
Damage,
makes everything jump in kind of a funny circle around it, but it only does 10 damage, so it's not too much. It's kind of funny looking, but it is a hell of a lot of fun to watch and play with.
Yeah, you can definitely relocate those workers, and then you can punish from a totally different angle. So we see those being chucked out right now. The Queen bouncing up in the air. Another command center here being made, macroed out by MVP. Meanwhile, over here at the ramp, more harass is continuing. Boxer looks like he might be trying to dive in here to the main of the Archon Zerg.
Well, looks like the Ling's going to chase him back for the time being. Those mines do come up every 10 seconds or so. So, see, they do go down again, and bam, the drones get thrown off here once again. And by the way, guys, before this gets going too quickly, make sure that you jump on Twitter and go hashtag MVP Box if you think they'll win, and hashtag YellowNest if you think they'll win, so we can see what people are thinking.
Looks like this Reaper has maybe coming to an end. No, just in the last second, managing to not escape. Gun down there. So far, solid defense there by Yellow. It was cool to see the new Reaper harass be exhibited in a way.
Yellow 1, Boxer none right now. Kind of a reversal from before.
That's very true. It also, with these two guys here together, I am actually wondering, just because the game's going to slow down just for a second here, how does this look when it really starts to pick up? Because you can't just have one person macroing all the time and one person microing all the time, right? Eventually, you might have to cut the map into, okay, like you focus more on the top part or just the drops, or I'm going to focus on the ground army. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool, and part of the style of different Archons is like how they're going to split that up. Like if you're being multi-pronged harassed, why not put one guy defending one area and one guy defending the other area? That's definitely a possibility, and I'm sure during later battles that we are going to see both players controlling those battles to try to make sure that they just crush it.
By the way, a little bit of old school flavor here. Scouting barracks, that was used much more back in Brood Wars. We're seeing kind of a fusion of two styles here to poke out. Meanwhile, going back into more of a StarCraft 2 traditional style, we see the Hellions coming out here and trying to drive back the Queens and then ideally eliminate the creep on the map.
Now, guys, this is the Cyclone. It's like a mobile Scud missile launcher, and it can log on to things. Right now, they're upgrading its damage overall when it does lock on. And when it locks on, it can move while firing, and it does a lot of damage, especially to armor. And over there, we do see, of course, the Ravager. It comes out of the Roach. Something you can actually morph it into, kind of like a Baneling, but it doesn't die. It does shoot those things up in the air, which land and do a lot of extra splash damage. It's called Corrosive Bile, and it's definitely something you want to dodge.
Yeah, and that really forces, the opposing player to give up room on the map, because there's going to be locations on the map, as you can see right there, that will be hit. And that allows you to then maybe do damage if you have longer range attacks as they're retreating, or maybe force them into an area of the map where they don't want to go to, but they get trapped in.
That's right, and it's a lot of damage as well. It's 60, and it's AoE damage. So if it lands on a bunch of clumped up units, it can deal a lot. So you have to dodge that. They still do a lot of damage, about 60, and shoot a little bit slower than Roaches, though. So you don't want to fight heads on just like that. He's going to have to pull back for now.
Well, he's right outside the entrance here of the Archon Zerg base. They both are, I should say, outside the entrance. And it looks like all that they could try to do right now, Yellow just trying to blast them back as far as possible. We had an interesting mech push. I'm curious how effective this will be, not just in Archon mode, but, you know, in the matchup in general as the game develops further. But he does have SCVs here to repair this.
Well, right now we do have him pushing this back. Still a lot of harassment going on. These SCVs, of course, on auto repair, trying to keep everything healthy there for Boxer. Stealing a little bit of that MVP economy.
Important to note, speaking of economy, it's 3 base versus 3 base right now. So while this aggression's going on, the Terran army has actually managed to stay even on bases with the Zerg, which, regardless of what version of StarCraft you're playing, is always a bad thing for the Zerg.
Yeah, certainly it is the case. And I do notice that so much can happen in Archon mode. Look at this. We've had non-stop harassment in this game while they're still expanding all over the place. They're both over 100 SPY, despite the fact they keep losing units.
Yeah, it's pretty neck and neck, and take a look here. Yellow might actually loop around now. He does have some lings on the outside. It looks like those lings are actually going to be barreling over here towards this expansion.
Indeed, they are. We're going to have to see what type of damage that they get done. Will MVP be able to deal with that? He doesn't really have a lot of units to work with because Boxer has taken them all to the front.
That's absolutely right, and this is going to be a huge problem right now. As you can see, they're just taking so much damage, not much to defend here, and losing these workers is going to be a big problem. The push still continues on the entrance.
It does, and we see right now Boxer does have to back up, takes a lot of damage there as MVP takes the Hellions away to defend against these Zerglings.
And that was a great interruption there by Nesty Yellow to get that over there and slow us down. And this push is really thinned out. I'm not entirely sure these two Cyclones are going to be able to do much more damage.
Yeah, I think that at this point, these two lone Cyclones not going to be able to do a whole hell of a lot. You know, Zergling's going to be a pretty good counter to them overall. They're really better against bigger units, you know, in lower amounts because they are so good at single target damage. So something like Zergling's going to be a great counter to this in the future. Yeah,
I think you're completely right. But so far, unless he switches into those Zerglings, they're going to be able to still keep doing more damage. Again, with perfect micro, you're not going to take damage as long as the stats are proper, that you can actually run and hit while they're not hitting you. So you can see really a lot of abuse being dealt out here.
And look, he's using the barracks so he can still see those roaches, and he can still deal this damage and run away. And yeah, every now and then the roaches are getting a kill, but oh man, they run too far into those Widow Mines, and Yellow is just hemorrhaging these units.
Again, barracks spotting, not common in StarCraft 2, but much more common in Broodor, actually, because it was so cheap to just have a barracks floating over there, even if it's taking damage, instead of just scanning up there. And that seems to pair well with the Cyclones right here.
Well, right now they are pushing for it. I'm very excited to see these Vipers come into action shortly here. I love that Boxer just wants a lot of Cyclones. This is like one of the matchups that I haven't seen him as much in, but I guess it's working out right now, dealing a lot of damage to these roaches.
We were actually talking backstage. We weren't sure what the role of the Cyclone would be, but it's very exciting to see it being used here now like this. Although these roaches now pushing Terran back all the way to home here. Meanwhile, Ling's harassing over here in the upper left.
Taking a lot of economical damage maybe coming up here. Still, we do see the Cyclones, though, pushing back these roaches. Another expansion going up now for MVP. In the meantime, Nesty already has his 4th up.
Kind of a never-ending engagement here in the center of the map. And, looks like he didn't quite time that out right. He was probably trying to preempt the movement of the Cyclones and then hit them there. But not so effective.
No, not quite. You see a lot of damage actually dealt on both sides there. Lots of units have gone down. Still trying to hit with corrosive fires. You got to be careful with those. Don't want to hit yourself, but does push them back for the time being. More and more mech units coming out now for MVP and Boxer.
Well, we now have Vipers coming into play here, still driving him back just a little bit. How do you think these Vipers are going to fare in this situation?
Well, you know, I think he's probably going to go ahead and abduct these units into his roaches and into his Ravagers, so should be able to kill those off pretty quickly. Now, we do have Hellbats coming. I don't know if you want to abduct Hellbats. I don't think I've seen it before, but I'm not thinking it's a good idea.
That's usually not a thing. By the way, Zerg losing a decent amount there, but if you look at the supply overall, and that's something we haven't really highlighted here, it's 123 for Terran, 187 right now.
You know,
for Zerg. So
watch how much he kills with those Cyclones. Doesn't seem like that would be the case, but
it seems like there's always a very small number of Zerg units, but then when you actually look at the numbers of it, the game's almost stopped Zerg from making anymore.
Well, when you've already created the universe, is it that hard to create 200 Zerg supply?
Oh, beautiful hits there with the Widow Mines, really punishing Nesty Yellow and forcing them back.
Well, right now we do have those Hellions going around the map, starting to poke all over the place. We might have these two both starting to micro a little bit if I had to guess. But, you know, Boxer's a quick one. He can probably keep on top of quite a bit. And we do see now that some Liberators are going to be joining the field shortly.
Also, let's point out here, the minerals are mining out very quickly, and that's another feature here in Legacy of the Void, is that you have to take expansions much faster. Oh, beautiful harpooning the Cyclones in there and punishing them. I don't know if MVP Boxer should be pushing this much further. And by the way, on the map in the center left, Creep has been pushed all the way to the ideal available Terran expansion. So Terran unable to get there. MVP Boxer going to have to fix that.
Very cute Creep spread there, sneaking its way around. But in Heart of the Swarm, the Creep stays a lot longer. Here it recedes twice as quickly. So when you clean it up, not as much of a big deal. Now, we do see these two Liberators have come into play. These are an anti-air flying unit, which does splash damage. So they're very good against clump units like Mutalisks. And then they can also go into defender mode here, which does high single target damage. See these circles? They can hit everything in there, and you want to stay away with that.
Yeah,
away from that. They deal so much damage.
Very tough for Zerg to deal with in that situation. Hard to get in there, and if you overextend, you're obviously going to be punished. And as you can see, you can begin to leapfrog forward and slowly push into the Zerg's territory. By the way, it looks like Terran in this game wants to push into the Zerg's heart and take out the main base versus trying to go crushing expansions. That can always turn into a game of whack-a-mole.
Indeed it can. And right now we do have Ultralisk popping out. Chitinous plating is almost done, and that is different in Legacy of the Void, guys. It gives them +4 armor, which is a lot more than +2. It is, the Ultras are way better in Legacy of the Void.
But at the same time, you got to think, you know, the Cyclones would be quite good against Ultras in this situation since they can kite endlessly.
Well, especially since they get that plus damage versus armor, they're going to just destroy Ultralisk so quickly. Really what I feel like is missing here from Yellow and Nesty is a bunch of speedlings to help surround these Cyclones and knock them out.
I think you're completely right, Artosis. I think you got to remember that, you know, as great as these new units are and the new abilities that come even with some of the older units or new features in them, you have to combo that with more of the basic tier 1 units. I mean, Ultralisks are just not going to be good. They're never good unless there's Zerglings there to pair with.
Indeed the case. A couple Zerglings do pop out, but it looks like right now we do have this natural hatchery being taken out. It was almost mined out, by the way, because the mineral patches are slightly different. Can't get into that right this second because we do have a counterattack here. Not a very scary one, though. 3 Roaches and 2 Ultras.
It's pretty minimal. Also, it looks like Terran may or may not go into the main or may just go for the other expansions here. If Terran does go to the main, all this tech is going to be destroyed. We're already seeing the beginnings of that.
Yeah, those Liberators entering defend mode. You can't run through there. Look at that, how quickly they deal that damage in defender mode. It is absolutely crazy. Those shots have 85 damage apiece. So they will fry anything that runs underneath them.
Yeah, it's definitely a moment where you're not allowed to make a mistake there.
They are glued in where they are, though. When they go in defender mode, they cannot move around. So something like Corrosive Bile, very easy to clean them up with. You just have to hit them with about 3.
Well, at this point in time, at least all production coming from the main can't really get out of this ramp. You know, it's going to be tough, especially if, you know, our Terran players are our one Terran team. MVP Boxer keeps reinforcing this area, but there's almost not much left here.
Yeah.
Oh, I spoke too soon, actually. There's plenty over there. So he can still keep pushing up into the main if he wants.
Well, in the meantime, Hellbat's kind of cleaning up this bottom right. There's another Zerg base down in the bottom left, though, and things are not really looking that good, I would say, for Yellow and ST here.
You know, a fragmented Zerg is not a healthy Zerg, and the fact that there's no circulation between a bunch of the bases that Nesty and Yellow have here means that MVP Boxer could keep choking off different areas, keep quarantining different spots on the map, and then punishing accordingly.
Right now we do have the Infestors coming down, trying to help this out. At least they're hitting some of these bases. Really, the top 3 bases in the top left here for Terran is mined out as well. So if they can get rid of that bottom mining base, then suddenly the economies are somewhat even. But right now the supply way in MVP Boxer's favor.
Well, let's also note something here. Not only is this expansion in trouble and the bottom left, but also center left. I believe that's been lifted off. If we can get it. Yeah, so they've actually, excuse me, it's very different casting in Archon mode. They've actually relocated that command center here. But this may become somewhat, not of a base race, but them trying to stamp out each other's expansions.
Yeah, it's kind of a base trade. It's like this weird rotational base trade that we're watching right now. Things going wrong all over the place. And this is something that's kind of funny as well for you know, Archon mode is if you get into one of these low economy situations where you're trading bases, suddenly you have two people basically just microing the whole time and trying to use their brains together. What do we do in this really weird situation?
Yeah, this is going to be tricky, especially when you consider all the new units and the fact that they're both having to multitask different things and communicate